Great new day to all my self-care family and friends. Welcome back to another Room to Breathe podcast. I am your host, LifeCoach614, and I am so happy that you made space to be here with us today. Now, before we get into this episode, do me a quick favor. If you're feeling the vibe, go ahead and show me some love. Tap the screen, like, comment, but most importantly, I need you to share this out with someone who may need a little healing energy today. And if this is your first time here or you haven't already done so, go ahead and hit that follow button. Subscribe to our channel so that way you're always tapped in when a new episode drops. I also want to personally invite you to check out our digital home at the selfcareclub.org. There you will find a ton of resources to help support your healing journey every step of the way. I want you to know that you don't have to do this alone. We are healing in community, growing one breath, one moment, one day at a time. So today, I want you to show yourself some grace, right? Give yourself permission to just pause, to reflect, and to make space for peace, for growth, but most importantly for you. And remember, if anything in today's episode hits home, be sure to drop some green hearts in the chat. That is our community's way of saying I am healing, I am growing, and I am showing up for me. Now, let's get ready to breathe, reflect, and grow together. Y'all listen. Today's topic, I just love, okay? It's where I get to merge like life coach with a little unhinged life coach, where we get into like that real healing conversation. So today we're going to do a little soul math. Okay, so class is in session. Welcome to Math Class 101. Because let's be honest, some of us have been calculating love, worth, and peace all wrong, right? We've been trying to solve emotional equations that never made sense by pouring double, compromising triple, right? Still coming up short on joy. We've been adding effort where there was no reciprocity, multiplying our giving, dividing our time, and subtracting our self-respect, all in the name of keeping the peace. But here's the truth. That wasn't peace. That was performance, right, D? And the math ain't never been mathing if you really think about it. See, when you start healing, right, the whole formula changes. Welcome in Money Making Mondays. I see you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. So again, guys, when you start healing, that whole formula changes different, right? You start counting differently. You start realizing that your value isn't up for debate. It's divine. You stop chasing validation and start checking for alignment. You stop trying to prove and you start protecting your peace. Because, healed girls don't count likes. Okay, ladies, we don't count the likes. We count blessings. Can I get an amen on that? I don't care how many people like my post. I'm over here counting blessings. I don't have time for the likes and subscribes and the views, right? I just want to count my blessings. Because as a healed girl, we don't count how many people stayed. We count how many times we chose ourselves and we grew. We don't calculate our worth by what we do for others. Right? We define it by how deeply we honor our peace today. So today's episode is all about redefining value. We're going to talk about the new emotional equations, the kind that add up to wholeness, not burnout. The kind that say, if it costs me my peace, it's too damn expensive, right? The math ain't mathing. So today's episode is going to be your reminder that healing doesn't make you complicated. It makes you clear. Okay? And clarity will always reveal what's worth keeping and what's worth being written off. So I want you guys to go ahead, settle in, find your soft spot, right? Your little comfy seat, unclench your jaw, roll your shoulders back, and just breathe. Because today, we're not chasing balance. We're creating it. We're doing healed girl math today, you guys. One peaceful calculation at a time. All right. So let's talk about this thing that I like to call healed girl math. Because if we're being real, for a long time, we were out here trying to make emotional equations work that never had the right variables. It's like we kept plugging in people who didn't belong in the formula and then wondering why the outcome never made sense. You ever look back and think, why was I the only one showing up? Why was I the only one apologizing just to keep the peace? Or why was I trying to make loyalty make sense when the math clearly wasn't adding up? Yeah, that's unhealed math. Okay? DJ Dre, welcome in. Unhealed math sounds like, if I just love them harder, maybe they'll change. Hey, Sin. Unhealed math sounds like, if I give more, maybe they'll finally see my worth. If I stay a little longer, maybe it'll balance out. Beautiful life, welcome in. But healed girl math is different. Okay? Healed girl math sounds like, if it drains me, it's not worth it. If it costs me my peace, it's too damn expensive. If I have to shrink to fit, it's already too small for me, right? See, somewhere along the way, we got taught that love was about proving instead of being. We believed that our value had to be earned instead of embodied. So what do? We started doing invisible math in our heads, right? Trying to keep track of how much we gave, how much we tolerated, how much it hurt, hoping that it would all even out someday. But let me tell you something. Peace don't work on credit. You can't buy peace by overextending yourself emotionally. You can't finance self-worth through someone else's approval. That math will always leave you in debt. And when I say in debt, I'm talking about spiritually, emotionally, sometimes physically, because we know that the body keeps score. And I get it. We learned survival math, right? We were taught survival math. We learned to overgive because love felt conditional. We learned to settle because we didn't want to lose the people that we loved, even if losing them would have been the most freeing thing for our spirit. We don't want to do that. But see, now we've evolved, right? Apologies, y'all. Now we've evolved, right? You are healing. And that means the math has changed. Because again, healed girl math says my worth is non-negotiable. My energy is not unlimited. And my peace is not up for sale. See, when you start counting differently, the entire equation of your life begins to balance. You start noticing who only multiplies the chaos in your life, who divides your energy, and who actually adds peace to it. So let's break this down. Some people are addition. Okay? And when I say some people are addition, I mean that they pour into you. They encourage you. They help you grow. Some people are subtraction. They take and they leave you with less than you were before. Some people are multiplication, right? They amplify your light, your laughter, your healing. And then there are divisions, right? People who break your spirit in half and call it a compromise. Welcome in, Vegan Healer. So it is time for us to stop calling subtraction love. Stop calling division loyalty. Stop trying to multiply peace with people who only bring you confusion. Because you can't fix math that ain't mathing with feelings. Healing is the recalculation. Yeah. Right. And once you learn the new formula, you'll learn that self-respect plus boundaries equals peace. That maths, right, coach? Peace plus time equals clarity. Oh, that maths. Or what about this one? Clarity plus courage equals freedom. Right? So when you learn this new formula, you start realizing that the only equation that ever truly mattered is the one that adds up to you being whole. So let's pause right here for a moment. I want everybody to just take a deep breath in, inhale awareness, exhale avoidance. And I'm going to say this with all the love I have to give. You don't have to keep proving your value. You don't have to keep balancing one-sided equations. Sometimes the answer is subtraction, and that is okay. Because the moment you start protecting your peace, the numbers start aligning in your favor. So it's time for us to do an emotional audit, right? Take a healing inventory. Because now that we've called out where the math ain't been mathing, let's talk about the part that most of us skip in this journey, which is the audit. Because before you can fix your finances, you got to start to look at your statements, right? And before you can heal your peace, you've got to start to look at where it was spent. It's this thing that I like to call a healing inventory, or, an emotional audit. Right? It's the moment that you sit down with yourself and you ask, where is my energy really going? What am I investing in? And what's been overdrafting my spirit? Now, I'll be honest, this part ain't glamorous. Y'all know I like to sit in the messy parts of healing. So again, I'm going to tell y'all, this part is not glamorous. It's not the soft girl healing aesthetic that we post on Instagram. This is the raw part. Welcome in, Kathy. This is the raw part. The receipts on the floor, tears in your journals, playlist on repeat kind of healing. That's the healing that I like. This is the part where you face your truth that peace wasn't stolen. No one stole it. You just spent it little by little on people and habits and expectations that just didn't serve your soul. And so I want you to ask yourself, honestly, where am I overspending emotionally? Welcome in, Trey's mom. What situations have me in the red spiritually? What conversations leave me drained instead of filled? Who do I keep trying to make worth it, even though the math never adds up? That right there is an emotional audit. To start to ask yourself the hard questions. And it's not about guilt. It's about clarity. Welcome in, Coach Regina. Because healed girls don't just pray for peace. We budget it, right? We budget for peace. We plan for it. We protect it like it's sacred because we know it is, right? And so for those of you who are journaling along this morning, I want you to draw a simple balance sheet on your page, right? I want you to write down 2 columns. On one side of the column, I want you to title it emotional deposits. And on the other side, I want you to put emotional withdrawals. Welcome in, Nicole. So again, on one side of the column, we have emotional deposits. On the other side, emotional withdrawals. Welcome in, Shonda. Now, under deposits, that's where you're going to list the things that pour into you, right? The people, the places, the practices that make you feel alive and grounded and seen. Maybe it's your morning walks. Maybe it's your worship playlist, your journal time, your community, or even just your boundaries. I want you to list all the things that pour into you. And then under the withdrawal side, I want you to write what pulls from you. That includes the spaces that leave you anxious, the conversations that you replay in your mind at night, the patterns that cost you your peace. And when you're finished, you're going to take a step back and you're going to look at that page and you're going to ask yourself, does my emotional bank reflect the woman that I'm becoming? Right? Because peace is not a mystery, y'all. It's just simple math. You know, when you really step back and look at it, if you were depositing into what drains you, you'll stay broke in spirit. But if you start investing in what fills you up, then your peace will grow with interest. And you know, here's the truth that took me a long time to learn. Healing doesn't just happen in your heart. It happens in your habits. The healed you doesn't just say, I want peace. You have to ask, what's the cost? Right? What is the cost of peace, and can I afford it? The healed girl doesn't just pray for better connections. She evaluates the energy exchange. And let me tell you something. When you start operating like that, you'll stop seeing boundaries as walls and you'll start seeing them as wise investments. Because peace is not the reward, it's the result. It's what happens when your emotional spending finally aligns with your spiritual budget. You have to remember that you don't owe anyone unlimited access to your peace. But you do owe yourself the clarity to see the things that no longer balance. Just because it worked for you then doesn't mean that it's still going to work for you now. So again, you know, you have to start operating using healed girl math. That's how you start getting your soul accounts back in order. And so now that we've discussed, you know, taking inventory and gotten real about where our energy is going, let's talk about what happens when you finally understand the cost of peace. Oh, because there's a price on peace, whether you want to admit it or not. Peace is not free. Okay, it's not free. And just imagine then losing it. Oh, that's way too expensive. You know, and when you think about peace, it just sounds beautiful, right? Peace is something that we post about on social media. We pray for it. We say that it's our priority. But if we're being honest, again, peace ain't cheap. It costs something, right? And for some of us, it costs everything. Peace will cost you relationships that only survived off your silence. It will cost you opportunities that looked good on paper, but broke your spirit in private. It might even cost you the version of yourself that kept performing just to be accepted. But here's the truth, and I need you to really feel this. The price of peace is always worth it, because the alternative is chaos disguised as comfort. Again, the price of peace is always worth it, because the alternative is chaos disguised as comfort. Now, let me break it down for you, because I'm gonna make it make sense. I promise you. All the equations today, the math gonna math, okay? There's a kind of chaos that becomes familiar, right? The I'm used to it kind of chaos. Welcome in, Sela. The kind that keeps you staying in cycles that you've already outgrown, telling yourself it's not that bad, but deep down you know that it really is. You know that it's costing you your sleep, your self-trust, your joy, your confidence. It's like, have you ever been around somebody who leaves you feeling heavy, but you can't really explain why? That's an emotional overdraft fee. You ever go to a job that pays your bills but starves your purpose? That's a peace penalty. Okay, have you ever agreed to something that you didn't want to do just to keep somebody else happy? That's a soul tax. Right? And those hidden fees add up. Peace will ask you to make some hard decisions. It'll ask you to walk away from the table when love is no longer being served. It'll ask you to be misunderstood for a season so that way you can be aligned for a lifetime. And if we're being honest, that hurts. Because some of us were raised to think that peace meant keeping the family together no matter what. That peace meant saying yes to remain likable. That peace meant being the one who fixes it all, even when it wasn't your mess to clean up in the first place. That's what peace, that's the peace that we've learned. That's the math that we've been trying to do all of these years. But peace isn't passive. It is powerful. And sometimes that power looks like walking away quietly. Not to prove a point, but to protect your purpose. Yes, break those shackles. And let me tell you something. When you start choosing peace, people will call you distant. They will call you selfish. They're going to say that you're being different. And you know what? They'll be right. And who cares? They'll be right and it's all right. Because you are different now. You are healed. Oh, I'm sorry, you are healing. Right? As long as we got air in our lungs, we're healing. So yeah, you are different now because you're healing. You've recalculated the equation and you realize that what once felt like loyalty was really self-betrayal in disguise. And so now that you're healing, you're no longer trading your peace for temporary approval. You're no longer negotiating your value to be understood. You've stopped giving discounts on your energy because healed girls know that anything that costs peace is too damn expensive, period. And here's the part that nobody tells you. When you finally pay that cost, right? When you finally pay the cost of peace, you know what happens? Peace pays you back with interest. When you finally cut off the chaos, what you've actually done is made room for the clarity. When you stop forcing alignment, you start attracting authenticity. When you say no to the things that drain you, you finally have the energy to say yes to what fulfills you. That's the return on your investment, right? Your ROI. Because that's what we all want, right? If I done put something in, if I poured into this, I want to see an investment. So what's the return on my investment? If I give you this, what am I getting in return? Because peace doesn't just sit quietly in your life. Peace multiplies, right? It flows into your conversations, your decisions, your relationships, your work, your creativity, everything. You start seeing life through softer eyes. You start resting instead of rushing. You stop proving and start just being. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what's peace been costing me? Or let me rephrase that. What's been costing me my peace? Where am I spending energy on what no longer serves me? And what would happen if I stopped paying that bill today? What does the disconnect look like? Is it going to leave me in the dark? Is it going to leave me out in the cold? Am I going to be out here in the middle of the storm? What's it going to cost me? Because see, I think that some of us are still, sending emotional payments to situations that expired years ago. Y'all paying companies that no longer exist. So what would happen if you stopped paying those bills today? Some of you are still financing old versions of yourself. Welcome in, Queen of the South. Some of you are still hoping for a refund from people who can't even afford to love us at our healed price. And you can't cash peace checks at banks built on dysfunction. It don't work, y'all. So again, you cannot cash a peace check at an institution that is built on dysfunction. Don't even take your check in there. So this week, I want you to cancel all of those subscriptions. I want you to unsubscribe from the struggle. I want you to turn that auto pay off of other people's expectations. Because once you stop funding what drains you, you'll finally have the freedom to invest in the things that fill you up. Now, let's talk about the budget, right? Because in order for us to do this, we've got to create a budget. And once you realize that peace isn't free, you'll learn how to manage it. And the way we do that is through our budget. And the way we create a budget is through our boundaries. Yeah, I know. I'm constantly telling you that boundaries are not walls. They're not punishments. They're not rejection. Boundaries are a budget plan for your energy. Boundaries tell people what your capacity is, right? They tell your mind, your body, and your spirit, this is how much I can spend today. This is what I can afford to give away. This is how I protect my peace from going bankrupt. You ever looked up and one day just felt completely drained? Like, even though you didn't do much physically, you just felt, like just drained. That's emotional overdraft. And when that happens, it's a sign that you've been out here swapping your energy like it's unlimited. We say yes to everything and everyone, hoping that it'll make us feel needed or loved. But that's unhealed girl math, right? But healed girl math says, I don't need to be needed to be valued. I don't have to overextend to be enough. And so boundaries are what keeps your peace profitable. Boundaries are how you make sure that your energy gets invested into the things that pour back into you. Think about it like this. You wouldn't give your debit card to a stranger, right? So if you wouldn't give your debit card to a stranger, why do you give your access code to people who've already shown you that they can't handle the responsibility? Now, when I say your access code, I'm talking about your time, your emotions, your spirit. So the same way I wouldn't give my bank card to a complete stranger, why would I give the access code to my account, meaning my time, my spirit, my emotions, my peace, to somebody who has already proven to me that they cannot handle it? We've got to understand that not everyone deserves a line of emotional credit with you. Some people have bad spending habits, right? They borrow your peace, they waste your time, and they never pay it back. That's bad credit, okay? And I know that saying no can feel hard, especially when you grew up being the peacemaker, the caretaker, the strong one, because you've now, over the years learned to equate boundaries with conflict. And, if choosing yourself meant betraying someone else, that's what we've learned over the years. Welcome in, Papa Smurf. But hear me clearly, you guys. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal. It is balance, right? It's how you make sure that you don't spend all of your love on people who only give you leftovers. Because healthy love has limits. Even God rested on the seventh day, right? So let me give you some real life examples of boundaries as budgeting. Let's talk about what that looks like. First example, you've been the friend who always listens, always shows up, but lately every single conversation with them leaves you heavy. And instead of ghosting, you say, sis, I love you, but right now I don't have the capacity for that conversation. That's not cold. That's clarity. Okay, boundary number 2. Let's say you're at work and they keep asking you to just take on one more task, do one more thing. Instead of saying yes out of guilt, you respond with, I can do quality work, or I can do quick work. I choose quality, which means I'll need to say no to that extra project because I could do it right or I could do it quick. I choose to do the job that is right? The quality work. So I'm going to have to pass on this extra project. And understanding that that's not rebellion, that's actual responsibility. Boundary example number 3. You're dating someone who keeps testing your boundaries. And instead of explaining your worth, you just stop negotiating it. Right? Maybe you send them the message that says, if respecting me costs you too much, right? That's not my bill to pay. Because that's healed girl math in action. And so sometimes you have to tell people, if you respecting me is costing you too much, might I suggest that you go find less? Because that's not my bill to pay. And here's the beautiful part. When you start setting boundaries, you start saving your peace. Your energy stops leaking. You stop chasing closure from people who never actually deserved an open door in the first place. You start living within your emotional means. And you realize that peace grows interest when it's protected. Let's take a moment to do a little boundary check-in, right? Ask yourself, where am I giving more than I'm receiving? Who gets access to me that no longer aligns with my peace? What situations leave me emotionally broke every time I show up? And the most important question of all, what would change if I treated my peace like my money? Would you still spend it where you weren't appreciated? Would you still loan it to people who only pay you back in stress? Would you still overdraft your energy trying to prove that you're worthy? I think the answer for many of us is nah, hell nah, right? You'd move differently. You'd start budgeting for joy, saving space for rest, and investing only in alignment. See, boundaries don't make you hard, they make you whole. They don't push love away, they just filter it. They don't keep people out, they just make room for peace to stay. And once you learn that, you'll never apologize for having standards again. So, before we move into my next talking point, right? I just want you to write this affirmation down in your journal or even just say it out loud. I am not cold. I am conserving energy. I am not cold. I am conserving energy. I am not cold. I am conserving energy. Welcome in, Anne. I am not distant. I am delivered. I am not distant. I am delivered. I am not distant. I am delivered. And lastly, my peace is a priority, not a privilege. My peace is a priority, not a privilege. My peace is a priority, not a privilege. Take a deep breath in Inhale, protection. Exhale, permission. Again, inhale, protection. Exhale, permission. Guess what? You just made another healed girl deposit in your peace account. You ain't even know that, right? MG, welcome in. You just made another deposit to your peace account. And so now that we've built our emotional budget, let's talk about what happens when you start seeing a return on those investments, right? The emotional ROI. But instead of it being a return on investment, we're going to call it our return on investment, right? Now that we've learned how to budget our peace, it's time to talk about what happens when you start investing it differently. And, again, the world likes to talk about the ROI, the return on investment. But in healing, it looks a little bit different. We're talking about a return on inner investment. Because real growth doesn't just happen in your bank account. It happens in your boundaries, your beliefs, your behavior, the work that you do on yourself. That's an investment. And peace, clarity, and joy, that's your return. See, when you start pouring into your healing, you'll notice how everything in your life starts to yield interest, slowly but surely, right? When you invest in rest, you'll start seeing a return on creativity and focus. When you invest in therapy, you'll start seeing a return in emotional freedom. When you invest in boundaries, you start seeing a return in your peace of mind. Golden Melanin, welcome in. When you invest in stillness, you start hearing God's voice more clearly. That's what I call divine dividends. Divine dividends. Welcome in, TWOA. Now, I know some of y'all are in that season where you're wondering if it's worth it, right? You're doing the work, you're healing, forgiving, setting boundaries, and feeling like peace is on back order. But I promise you, it's working. Okay? It just takes time for those inner investments to mature. Because healing doesn't compound overnight. It compounds over obedience, over consistent, quiet choices to keep showing up for yourself, even when nobody sees it. It's the moment that you choose to pause instead of react. It's the moment that you write instead of argue. It's the moment when you cry and breathe and let go instead of going back. It's when your peace portfolio starts to grow. It's like, have you ever looked back at an old situation and realized that it doesn't trigger you anymore? That's a ROI. You ever hear the same apology from someone who once had power over you, and this time the apology just simply doesn't move you? That's ROI. You ever rest instead of rushing because you trust that, what's yours will find you? That's an ROI. Return on investment. See, every healed decision that you make is a deposit into your future self's peace account. Every time you choose alignment over attachment, you are earning emotional interest. Every time you choose prayer over panic, you're gaining spiritual equity. Healed Girl Mav says, I'm not losing, I'm learning. I'm not behind, I'm being built. My peace is paying me back in ways I can't even calculate yet. Now, let me be real for a second, because sometimes healing feels like you're pouring into a bucket that has a hole in it. It's like you feel like you're doing all of this work wondering, when do I feel full again? But here's the thing. That hole in the bucket that you feel isn't a flaw. It's where the old version of you used to live. And as you heal, that space becomes capacity. Capacity for peace, for joy, for healthy love that doesn't require you to shrink. That's real return. And you know what I call it? Emotional equity. Because the more peace that you protect, the more value you gain. You start realizing that energy is expensive. You start walking differently, talking differently, loving differently, because you've learned that peace is the ultimate profit, right? So suddenly you stop chasing emotion, these emotional quick fixes, and you start building generational calm, right? That legacy work. So again, for your journal, I want you to write down, where have I seen my peace pay me back? Maybe it's the calm, right? The calm that you feel in the moments that used to break you. Maybe it's the confidence that you carry when you say no without guilt. Maybe it's the strength to forgive and move on without losing yourself in the process. That's your proof. That's your interest. That's your healing, yielding returns. And remember, not everything pays you back in the same currency that you gave. Sometimes you lose people, but you gain perspective. Sometimes you lose comfort, but you gain clarity. Sometimes you lose distraction and gain direction. So understand that every single loss with purpose brings peace with profit. So as you continue this healing journey, I want you to think of it like an investor. I want you to be intentional with your energy. Track where your time goes. Diversify your peace. And most of all, protect your inner assets. Because when you do, you'll realize that peace is not the absence of problems. It's just the abundance of presence. And that kind of wealth can't be taxed. And so now that we understand a little bit more about that emotional ROI, let's take this even a step further and talk about how to apply it in our real life. Right? I want you guys to create your own healed girl math formula. And fellas, listen, this is for y'all too. I know I keep saying healed girl math because I'm a girl and this is my math, but fellas, this will work for you too. So we're going to create our own healed girl math formula. All right. Those of you who are on YouTube and Facebook, you'll see the formula on the screen. So this is how we make it personal. Okay. Healed girl math. Let's talk about it. Healed girl math looks like blank plus blank equals blank. Okay. So you do a blank line plus another blank line equals another blank line. And guess what? Y'all gonna fill in the blanks. Maybe your math formula is silence plus self-respect equals peace. That's a good one, right? Perhaps your formula is boundaries plus grace equals balance. Mine was letting go plus faith equals freedom. Another one that I saw was self-love plus stillness equals power. I want y'all to write it down. Make it real. Share your formula in the chat. Blank plus blank equals blank. Like I said, mine is letting go plus faith equals freedom. So think about that today. Maybe you don't have the answer yet. We don't have to rush to get to it. I want you guys to think about it for a moment. What two things can I add together to equal what I'm trying to get to? And you know what? While we're on the subject of equations, let's talk about the relationship equations that no longer serve us. Let's talk about, the relationships, the friendships, the connections that keep showing up, right? And they keep showing us that the same math, but we're steady hoping for a new answer. Because some of us have been trying to turn fractions into wholeness, trying to make half love feel like home. And no matter how we rearrange it, the math just ain't mathing. Doesn't matter what we do. The math ain't mathing. So if we're being real, sometimes the hardest goodbyes aren't loud, they're quiet. They sound like distance. They sound like less text messages, slower responses, less emotional labor. They sound like realizing this person doesn't add to me anymore. And that doesn't make them a villain. It just means the equation expired. And so the unhealed you might have said, if I love them harder, maybe they'll meet me halfway. If I keep forgiving, maybe they'll finally change. If I just stay loyal, eventually they will see my value. But the healed you, the healing you, is rewriting that whole formula. So now because we're healing, we say, if it drains me, it doesn't deserve me. If I have to beg for peace, it's too expensive. If loving you means losing me, it's no longer love, it's labor, and I don't want it. That's a job I don't want. That's healed girl math. And let's talk family for a minute, because I think that that's the one that hits us all deep. Hey, Cece. Sometimes the hardest relationships to release are the ones that are your own blood. We keep thinking loyalty should outweigh peace. We keep telling ourselves that's just how they are. And we stay in cycles of guilt, obligation, and disrespect, all while calling it love. But I need you to hear me when I say, yes, blood makes you related, but peace makes you connected. You can love them and still limit their access to you. You can forgive them and still protect your peace. You can honor where you came from without living living in the same space where you were hurt. Sometimes you have to let them go. Hey, Mars. Now, I'm not even going to just leave it as family. Let's talk about friendships too. The friendships where you're always the strong friend. You're the listener, the counselor, the cheerleader. But when you need a shoulder, suddenly everybody's busy. Like everybody is busy. They don't have time for you. That's an unbalanced equation. An unbalanced equation. You're the common denominator doing all the hard work. Every last drop of hard work all of a sudden has just fallen on you. So you have to understand that you're the common denominator. And healed you, or the healing you, is finally saying no more group projects where I feel like I'm the only one doing the assignment. Friendship should be reciprocal. Effort should be mutual. Peace should be shared. And you know what? Let's not even skip over romantic relationships. Sometimes the biggest math mistake that we make is thinking that chemistry equals compatibility. Just because it sparks doesn't mean that it sustains. And just because they mirror your pain doesn't mean that they're your person. Healed Girl Math says consistency plus communication equals security. Faithfulness plus effort equals safety. If the math requires me to lose myself, I'm dropping out of that class. I don't want it. And I know some of y'all are listening right now thinking about that one person, right? The one person that you kept making excuses for. The one that you kept rounding up to make them fit. But here's the truth. When you keep trying to make decimals whole, right? Or I'm sorry, decimals equal whole numbers, you end up short every single time. You can't fix someone's equation while ignoring your own imbalance. And you don't have to feel guilty for graduating from a relationship that refused to grow with you. Welcome in, Michelle. You know, some people are not bad. They're just incomplete lessons. So here's what I want you to do this week. Again, grab that journal again. Open your notes app. Make 2 columns. On the left side, title it Old Equations. Yes. So on the left side, we got old equations. These are the relationships or dynamics that no longer serve your healing. Things like me plus people pleasing equals burnout. Me plus over explaining equals anxiety. Or me plus ignoring red flags equals heartache. Those are old equations. Right? We're dropping that class. Now on the right side, notice I said on the right side, right? The right side, we're going to write healed equations. And we're going to rewrite those same ones in truth, where we say me plus boundaries equals balance. Me plus self-respect equals alignment. Me plus peace equals purpose. Yes, on the right side. You don't owe anyone an explanation for recalculating your life. When peace becomes the standard, the math changes automatically. So again, let's take a breath right here. This time I want you to inhale acceptance. And exhale attachment. Again, inhale acceptance. Exhale attachment. It is time for us to release every equation that no longer balances. It is time for us to release every equation that no longer balances. I'm allowed to outgrow unhealed versions of connections. I choose relationships that multiply my peace, not confusion. Y'all, give me a second. I got a disgruntled 3-year-old at the door. Listen, the little boss, she's so angry because she's coming up here to tell me that my food is ready. But I'm like, go tell Papa I'm working. These toddlers, like, girl. But I blame the husband, y'all, because he know what time it is. Anywho, it is time for us to release every equation that no longer balances. We are allowed to outgrow unhealed versions of connection. And we get to choose relationships that multiply peace, not confusion. And so when you do that, you'll start attracting relationships that don't require you to shrink. Thank you. Connections that add value. People who show up with reciprocity instead of reminders. Because healed math is mutual math. Thank you. Healed math is mutual math. Okay? And so, you know, it's love that's balanced, energy that's shared, and peace that's protected. And so now that we've rewritten these old equations, let's zoom out and look at the hidden costs, right? That emotional fine print, because there's always some fine print somewhere, right? They hide it in different areas. So let's talk about the fine print. The fine print or hidden emotional fees, I'll say. Hidden emotional fees. I think that healing ain't just about cutting people off or setting boundaries, right? It's about learning to read the fine print of your peace. And let me explain to you what I mean. Every single connection, every commitment, every yes that you give comes with terms and conditions. Welcome in, Butterfly. Mr. Awesome, welcome in. So let me say that again. Every connection, every commitment, every yes that you give comes with terms and conditions. Some are clear, like love, support, understanding. But others, they're hidden fees, right? The ones we didn't notice until our peace started declining and our spirit started overdrafting. See, nobody warns us about the silent cost of staying too long or loving too hard or over explaining ourselves. Nobody told us that every single I'm fine, when we weren't, was self-tax. That every sure I can do it when we were already exhausted was a withdrawal from our soul. That every single time that we ignored our intuition, that we paid interest in the form of anxiety and resentment and regret. That's the fine print that we missed. And if we're being honest, we've all signed contracts that we didn't read, right? We've agreed to relationships that required us to be small. We've said yes to jobs that demanded our time but never honored our talent. We've tolerated friendships that cost too much and returned too little. And the emotional fees, right? They show up quietly. In the weight that you feel when your phone rings, in the pit of your stomach before any sort of family gathering, right? In the fatigue that hits you after being around people who pretend to care but drain your light. That's not just being tired. That's emotional interest on energy loans that you never should have taken out. But here's the good news. You can renegotiate your contract at any time. You can cancel subscriptions to stress. You can rewrite the terms of engagement without, you can, how do I want to put this? You can rewrite the terms of engagement with yourself and other people, right? Because that's what healed girl math looks like. Right? Reading the fine print, reclaiming your power, and refusing to pay for peace that's already yours. Thank you so much. And you know what? Let's name some of those emotional fees. The guilt fee, right? The guilt fee, where, you know, that's the charge you pay every single time you choose yourself and then feel bad about it. Healing you says, you know what? I'm not guilty for growing. Or the approval fee, the cost of performing for acceptance. But that healing version of you says that my authenticity is my validation. Or what about the silence fee? When you suppress your truth to keep the peace. The healing version of you says, if my peace requires my silence, it's not peace, it's pressure. There's a comparison fee, right? When you measure your worth by someone else's highlight reel, the healed you says, you know what? I'm not in competition with anybody. It is me versus me, right? And then there's the I'll fix it fee. Anybody else pay that fee? I'll fix it. When you take responsibility for things that you didn't break. But the healed version of me says, I can love you and still let you learn your own lesson. That's on you, right? Because here's where the shift happens. You start negotiating differently. You stop apologizing for having needs. You stop justifying your boundaries. You stop signing emotional agreements written in guilt and signed with fear. Because now you're not just showing up, you're showing up informed. You've read the fine print. You know what your peace is worth. And so this is the moment that we get to inhale awareness. We get to exhale attachment, right? Deep breath in. Y'all feel that awareness? Let it go. Release the attachment. We are no longer paying emotional fees for lessons that we've already learned. We release the contracts that cost us our peace. We are no longer financing anyone else's healing at the expense of our own. Because healed girls, we read the fine print now, right? We don't sign up for situations that require us to lose ourselves. We don't do installment plans on love that's inconsistent. We don't let guilt autopay from our emotional account. And most importantly, we don't renew memberships to chaos. Unsubscribe. So as we breathe through this truth, I want you to reflect. What hidden fees have we been paying in silence? What would your life look like if you just canceled those subscriptions today? What would you gain if you stopped buying peace through performance? Welcome in, Victoria. That's your homework for this week. To reread the fine print of your own healing. Because peace doesn't come from ignoring the contract. It comes when you rewrite it. And so we've talked about the hidden emotional fees, but let's talk about the glow up that follows. Because remember, there's something at the end for us. That glow up equation. This is the beautiful part. Because remember, we had our equation. Does anybody remember that equation? Blank plus blank equals blank. And so this is, when you start healing, where the math finally starts to make sense, right? And so you start to realize that loss plus reflection equals wisdom. That pain plus purpose equals power. That faith plus surrender equals alignment. See, we have to understand that God doesn't subtract to hurt you. He subtracts to simplify you. And that's what I like to call divine accounting. Okay? Every single time you release what's not aligned to you, you are balancing your spiritual books. And you know what? You might not have even known that they were off. But every single time that you release what no longer serves you, you are balancing your spiritual books. And so after this episode, I want you to take a few moments to truly sit with the questions of what relationships, habits, or thoughts no longer balance. What am I overspending emotionally? What would my life feel like if my peace was the bottom line? Because when peace becomes your non-negotiable, everything else finds its rightful place. Now listen, y'all. I know I've shared a lot of lessons today. This is definitely one that you'll need to go back over to YouTube and catch the replay, okay? But I just want to slow down and have a real moment with y'all, right? I'm going to call this my receipt. Y'all know me. I'm good for a receipt, okay? So this is my receipt. Because we know that healing has a paper trail, right? And when I look back over my life, I can see every single thing that peace has cost me. And I can also see how, what it paid me back in return. There was a time, not even too long ago, when I was given discounts on my peace. I'm talking buy one, get one free access to my energy. I was out here offering full-time loyalty to people who were only giving me part-time respect. I was staying in rooms where I was tolerated, not celebrated, and convincing myself that it was love because I didn't know what peace felt like yet. I kept showing up, smiling through the pain, pouring out when I was empty, and I called it strength. But truthfully, it was survival math. It was trying to balance equations that were never designed to be fair. And I'll never forget the day I saw the final receipt. It wasn't a breakup. It wasn't betrayal. It was me sitting in my own bathroom mirror, realizing that I didn't recognize the woman who was looking back at me. My eyes were tired. Not just from sleep, but from lack of self. I had spent so much energy proving that I was enough that I didn't even know who I was without the performance. And so that was the day that I printed the receipt. Every yes that cost me rest. Every I'm fine that silenced my truth. Every it's okay that wasn't. I printed the receipt. Closed out the tab, and I realized that I had been paying for peace that I already owned. And that moment changed everything for me. Because once you see the receipt, you can't unsee it. Right? Once you get that bill, you start canceling things immediately. I'm talking about subscriptions, patterns, expectations, guilt trips, all of it. Y'all can have all of that. Tab is closed. We ain't running nothing else up. And y'all, for me, I stopped answering calls that only came when somebody needed something. I stopped over explaining my boundaries to people who were simply committed to misunderstanding me. And I stopped feeling guilty for walking away from people and places and situations that only drained me. It wasn't easy. Nope. Peace will always invoice your pride before it delivers your freedom. But that return that I received was priceless. And so now when people ask me, how did you change? I tell them, I started saving my receipts. Right? Because the healing me doesn't apologize for the cost of my peace anymore. I just keep proof that I paid it. It is paid in full. So let me ask you, what receipts do you need to print today? Whose name keeps showing up on your emotional statements, but they haven't made a deposit in years? What version of you has been carrying imbalances that don't belong to her anymore? Maybe it's time that you audit your peace account again and file away everything that no longer serves you. It's out of season. It's expired. Because peace always leaves a paper trail. You just have to be brave enough to read it. And I'll tell you this, once you reclaim your receipts, you also reclaim your responsibility. You realize that no one took your peace, that you gave it away bit by bit, trying to be everything for everyone. But now you're reclaiming it, breath by breath. That's what healed girl math looks like. Taking accountability without shame. Finding clarity without blame. And choosing peace without permission. Right? So let's take in another breath, y'all. All these breaths are intentional. This time I want you to inhale restoration. Exhale, release. Again, inhale, restoration. Exhale, release. And I want you to say it with your chest. I am no longer negotiating my peace. I am no longer negotiating my peace. I have paid my dues and I've got the receipts to prove it. I am no longer negotiating my peace. I've paid my dues and I've got the receipts to prove it. So we done checked our receipts. Let's close out this, with just, I guess, another reflection. A reflection of recalculated and restored. Can you guys put that in the chat? Recalculated and restored. Recalculated and restored. This is a R&R that y'all ain't know y'all needed. Recalculated and restored. Because listen, the numbers are clear. Your peace is greater than their approval. Your purpose is greater than their perception. Your boundaries equal your breakthrough. So understand that it is okay to recalculate your life mid-journey. Sometimes healing looks like pressing clear on an old equation and starting fresh, right? With wisdom as your calculator. I no longer prove my worth through performance. My peace is now my priority. My healed girl math is adding up to joy. Now, before we part ways, family, let me leave you all with a little love and light. As always, I encourage you to keep breathing through the highs, the lows, and every single moment in between. I want you to keep choosing peace, even if it feels out of reach. And to know that here at the Self-Care Club, you will always be seen, always valued, and always supported. So please do not be afraid to take up space, speak your truth, and make a little room for you to breathe. I love each and every one of you to life. And I am praying that your day is not just amazing, but aligned, intentional, and on purpose, filled with purpose. This has been another Room to Breathe podcast, and I cannot wait to connect with you all again soon. Thank you.